Yesterday, the Metropolitan Police Federation suspended Chair Rick Pryor after he claimed that white officers were hesitating when dealing with minority ethnic suspects due to fears of malicious racism investigations that could damage careers. Upon hearing of Pryor's suspension, GBNews has been contacted by several serving and former coppers who are furious that he's been suspended for simply telling the truth. And one of them is Ant, who served as a response officer for Leicestershire Police for 7 years, and he's today decided to bravely speak out for the first time. And he joins me now here on GB News. Ant, welcome to the show. First of all, can I commend your bravery in coming forward? We've been speaking for several months, and I know you've wanted to speak out, but of course the real-world consequences can be significant. You've spoken with your wife and you've agreed to come on today. So thank you to your family and yourself for speaking out. Can I now turn to, let's start with Rick Pryor's suspension. Rick Pryor simply spoke of his experience garnered from many, many officers and his own experience. And he said, this is the thing, he was suspended for telling the truth. What's your thoughts initially, Ant, on that?
Well, yeah, I think it's basically the reason I'm doing this is because that resonated with me. What he said resonated with my lived experience. Just wanted to correct your headline just slightly, just before I go on any further. It's not something I saw every day in the job. There were occasions where stuff I saw resonated with what he said exactly, and I've got experience of that. But it's not every day, and it wasn't the sole reason why I left the job. It was one of the reasons. But yes, I definitely agree with what he said. And I think it's more of an issue now as you've got inexperienced police officers who've sort of replaced the experienced police officers, and they're in this sort of environment where there's this sort of hypersensitivity towards racism within the job. And yeah, I think that's a big cause of hesitation. I say I did 7 years, so in comparison to some of the guests that you have on here, I don't know everything there is to know about policing. I've just got a lived experience. I'm from a normal background. I went into the job, I did the job for a bit, and then I've come back out to building, which is what I do. But I can share some experience of that. One of the things that I used to enjoy doing and I did a lot of was going out and making arrests, and because I was quite good at that, sort of thing I did. Sometimes I put newer or less experienced officers in with me to go and make those arrest attempts, and there was definitely occasions where with some of those people who were a bit hesitant anyway. If you're in a bit of a spot with somebody and you're in a public setting and those accusations start getting thrown around, definitely can cause hesitation. And I think obviously I've been away from it for a while now, but I obviously keep an eye on things on the news and one thing or another, and I can see that's as this topic gets more and more heightened, you see I believe that's what you're seeing, and we can see, especially with inexperienced police officers, because you've got to work within the parameters of the law. They've got this process going on in their brain all the time of trying to deal with different situations that are presented in front of them, and everything's got to be proportionate. It's got to be legal. You've got to have an objective for what you're doing, and you're accountable for what you're doing, and you've got all that process going in the head. And at the same time, say in a public setting, someone could start screaming and shouting and calling you racist, and that can put you on the back foot. And I have seen that. And I think it's and one of the things that sort of winds me up and other colleagues, ex-colleagues that I spoke to and other police officers, is the people that are supposed to support you, your bosses and your gaffers, are quite happy to come on the news and start talking about how the police is an institutionally racist organisation. These are the people that are supposed to have got your back, and they're happy to say all that. And I think that puts officers on a back foot anyway before they sometimes even get to a job.
And Ant, could I ask you about another point that we spoke about in private yesterday, and that is within the police force itself, even police officers, colleagues of an ethnic minority status are using this system to further their own careers and even damage the careers of white officers?
Well, I do think there is 100% there is positive discrimination within the police. That is very obvious, and it's they don't call it positive discrimination; they call it affirmative action. So if it's not just a race thing, it's basically the police are trying to reflect society. So there is they want a reflection of society. So they want enough black people, enough ethnic minorities. They want enough female officers. They want enough representation from everywhere, LGBTQ. They want that. So certainly was my experience that I thought those officers were backed and pushed in the job and tend to be put in positions in the job based on their immutable characteristics. And that's a major driving thing, more than a merit-based system.
And do you believe that this is just caving in morale to the point now where just so many officers, they're just getting out of the force because they just don't believe in it anymore? They feel that they're being to the bottom of the stack, particularly if they're white.
Well, so it's not me just spouting. The retention rate within the police is, I think, historically its worst point ever. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's certainly, I think that's the case. So retention rate is officers that come into the job and stay in the job. It used to be sold as a job for life. It's not a job for life anymore, I don't believe. They come in and they turn around and they go. And I think one of the big factors is this: what we're talking about, this fear of being in trouble. If you put your heart and soul into the job, and you sort of, before long, your life revolves around the job, and work. You get your friends of everyone on shift, and everything's your mortgage and all the rest of it. I was lucky because I was at a trade that I can fall back on and jump out the job, but they get more and more sucked in. And then if you do get investigated for whatever it is, but particularly if it was a race sort of based investigation, if there's been accusations made like that, it becomes a formal investigation. It's a horrible process. And it's a long process, and people obviously want to avoid that like the plague, because it's you can put everything in jeopardy. Your whole sort of career can be put in jeopardy. So I think when those sorts of kryptonite accusations get thrown around, I think it definitely makes people hesitant. I would believe 100%. You think of those officers that dealt with that Bianca Williams incident not so long back. And they've had, from an everyday stop on a car, it escalated to that extent. And then it's been, I think I'm right in saying, 4 years of turmoil they've had, and they've eventually been let back into the job. I wouldn't a chance I'd have gone back into the job. But you're telling me next time they see a car that's got warning markers for whatever, and it needs stopping, and it's been driven by some ethnic minority people, I could see an officer who'd been through that process thinking, do you know what, I've decided I haven't seen that, and because who wants to risk doing all that again?
Okay, and we have to leave it there. Again, I'd like to thank you very, very much for speaking out to us here on GB News. Thank you very, very much, my friend, and you take care.